The hush that crept through the palace early in the year began like any other minor court rumor. No heralds, no clarion headlines, only the faintest murmur among household aides. But by the time confirmed word of Princess Catherine's abdominal surgery reached the public on a cold January afternoon, the shock rolled across Britain with the speed of a Channel squall. Doctors stressed it was a precaution. Buckingham briefers spoke of an undisclosed condition, and newspapers spun politely measured updates. Yet beneath every bulletin ran the unspoken question: if the princess, whose energy once seemed inexhaustible, could be forced into retreat, what did that signal for the House of Windsor still navigating the post-Elizabethan era? Such uncertainty felt at odds with Catherine's established public image. For nearly 2 decades, she had balanced court protocol and modern reach with unusual steadiness, a reputation rooted long before cameras tracked her every move. Born in Reading on 9 January 1982 to British Airways employees, Michael and Carol Middleton, she experienced a comfortably aspirational childhood, first in Berkshire, then, briefly, in Amman, Jordan, while her father's posting stretched across 2 formative years. Teachers at St. Andrew's School remembered a shy 4-year-old returning from the Middle East, already fluent in playground diplomacy, disarming classmates with a tentative Arabic greeting before slipping into flawless English. By adolescence, she had traded provincial lanes for Wiltshire's rolling downs, excelling at hockey for Marlborough College and collecting the Gold Duke of Edinburgh's award with a grin that hinted she could outrun most of her male teammates, the Thau. Trajectory might have remained the stuff of polished alumni brochures had she not stepped onto the musty catwalk of St. Andrews University's 19th-century Younger Hall in a sheer charity-fashion frock. Observers later mythologized that moment as the instant Prince William's gaze left the safety of inherited expectation and settled on a future built as much on partnership as pedigree. Friends saw the romance thrum and stall through lectures, sailing trips, and a brief breakup that taught both parties how savage flashbulbs could become. Still, by autumn 2010, William's proposal in the Kenyan highlands bound Catherine to Britain's most scrutinized family and entrusted her with a role that had both defined and devoured predecessors. Marriage delivered a new public lexicon, duties, walkabouts, investitures, Commonwealth tours from Calgary to Tuvalu, and hastily memorized Gaelic greetings on windswept sky. Inside each itinerary lived moments the evening news rarely caught. Private condolence visits with children at Naomi House Hospice, nights she spent sketching catalogue art for the Middleton, family's fledgling Party Pieces brand, dawn departures for RAF Valley to wave off rescue crews before slipping into the crowd unnoticed. The balance of crown and common sense looked effortless because she logged the practice hours when no one watched. Motherhood arrived with none of the ceremony of state banquets, yet its logistical demands reshaped the court circular more than any foreign envoy. Severe hyperemesis during each pregnancy forced cancellations that grated against her own perfectionist timetable. Nonetheless, Prince George's birth in July 2013, Princess Charlotte's 2 years later, and Prince Louis's in 2018 grounded the Cambridge household in domestic rhythms, nursery drop-offs, kitchen table homework, nocturnal patrols for nightmares. When COVID locked Britain indoors, Catherine's iPhone became a lifeline between Kensington Palace and the early years charities she championed. She volleyed Zoom calls with exhausted parents, emailed resource packs to head teachers, and filmed short science experiments with Charlotte that later aired in primary school classrooms, starved of field trips. Court watchers dubbed the resulting public goodwill the Kate effect, a phenomenon quantified in spikes of retail analytics each time she re-wore a Zara blazer or recycled a decade-old Alexander McQueen coat. What the spreadsheets could not measure was how swiftly she converted attention into charitable capital. £10 million raised to expand East Anglia's children's hospices, nationwide growth of the Scout Association's female leadership, record ticket sales for the National Portrait Gallery's post-pandemic relaunch, after she quietly underwrote the family-friendly wing. If the monarchy's soft power is credibility, Catherine banked it at a pace that steadied even critics of hereditary privilege. Her televised piano performance during the Westminster Abbey Carol service, delivered while pandemic restrictions still muted communal singing nationwide, entered Christmas playlists alongside hymns older than the Union flag. Foreign Office planners, initially skeptical of dispatching a 30-something duchess to reassure hurricane-stricken Bahamian communities, returned astonished by footage of her negotiating disaster relief priorities with island elders in the rain while William hauled crates beside Coast Guard volunteers. Such momentum made the January Health Bulletin feel not merely concerning, but destabilizing. Within 48 hours, the usual information ecosystem fractured. Well-meaning social media hashtags clashed with conspiracy speculation after William canceled a speech at his cousin's memorial. When paparazzi lenses failed to secure fresh sightings, noise filled the vacuum. None of it shifted Kensington. Palace's strategic silence. Recovery would require private space. Behind high brick walls, the Wales children adjusted to whispered instructions about germ protocols and the sudden appearance of medical-grade disinfectant pump stations outside every nursery door. George, now an 11-year-old balancing pre-teen, irony with inherited solemnity, reportedly drafted a get-well card that included tactical diagrams for castle defenses, just in case. Charlotte began monitoring her brother's elbows at dinner like a junior etiquette marshal, while Louis, who once greeted photographers with roguish grimaces, fell uncharacteristically hushed in public, clinging to William's hand during school runs. The household's outward playbook changed in lockstep. William trimmed overseas commitments to day return trips, mastering red-eye dossiers so he could reappear at palace breakfast by 7. Long-planned climate innovation summits shifted from global stages to encrypted teleconference rooms adjacent to the London clinic. When Catherine's pathology results confirmed a cancer diagnosis, the palace's communications director chose transparency over drip-feed rumor. A single stark video, recorded against the Windsor springtime daffodils, Catherine speaking plainly, of chemotherapy begun a few weeks ago, William hovering beyond frame reading body language only his children know by heart. The broadcast recast public discourse overnight. Well-wishers tethered blue periwinkle ribbons, a Victorian emblem of hope, to palace gates. Oncology charities registered a surge in early screening inquiries dubbed the Catherine Bump. In classrooms, primary school teachers used the princess's vocabulary of scary but treatable to explain illness to pupils with sick relatives. Yet for constitutional lawyers, the announcement posed a parallel scenario. How would the monarchy navigate a prolonged period in which its senior female figurehead, potentially the future queen consort, was medically sidelined? One quiet answer lay in spreadsheets Catherine herself commissioned years earlier. Patronage succession matrices now activated, transferring day-to-day visibility for 25 charities to senior trustees, while maintaining her advisory oversight via encrypted briefings between chemo sessions. It was crisis management by delegation, executed before most realized a crisis existed. Away from strategy tables, the human weight showed in smaller gestures. Staff installed new filtration units in Apartment 1A's nursery wing. The family dogs, Orla and plucky spaniel puppy Alfie, underwent advanced grooming to minimize allergen shed. Close friends slipped casseroles through service yard gates. Catherine's sister Pippa organized rotating school-run carpools to protect the children from intrusive lenses. For a family trained to make every outward step photogenic, learning to disappear required discipline. When spring term concluded at Lambrook, the Waleses decamped to the privacy of Anmer Hall's Norfolk Acres. Neighbors glimpsed William cycling country lanes helmetless at dusk, George trailing like a small cavalry scout, while Charlotte negotiated with her father for additional greenhouse time to monitor seedlings she planned to gift hospice patients when Mummy is strong enough to visit again. Medical updates remained sparing, yet oncology specialists invited to brief foreign press described Catherine's regimen in cautiously optimistic language: targeted chemotherapy, aggressive but with curative intent, surveillance scans scheduled at intervals to adjust protocols. Those details, though anonymous, tightened public resolve. Cancer survivor support forums ballooned with posts recounting infusion suite encounters where strangers traded coping hacks, princess playlists, curated to mirror Catherine's rumored love of Coldplay and classical crossover. Retailers quietly noted a rise in donations linked to limited edition headscarves marketed by young designers Catherine's private secretary had championed before Christmas. Throughout, the princess's wider impact refused to stall. Her landmark Shaping Us Early Years campaign, originally slated for a February relaunch, pivoted into virtual seminars broadcast from Kensington's family room. Researchers at Harvard's Center on the Developing Child reported a spike in cross-disciplinary collaboration after Catherine's video introduction credited them for translating neuroscience into nursery wisdom. Philanthropic watchdogs, notorious for skepticism toward royal endorsements, conceded that click-through conversion rates on donation portals still spiked whenever her pre-recorded voiceover narrated infant mental health infographics. Political columnists, meanwhile, measured the monarchy's soft diplomacy bandwidth, absent her in-person charm. At state visits where Catherine would typically deploy sartorial symbolism, maple leaf brooches in Ottawa, fuchsia jumka earrings in Lahore, senior aides scrambled to brief stand-ins on colour psychology. The Duchess of Edinburgh assumed additional ribbon cuttings. The Princess Royal shouldered more investitures, yet headlines invariably referenced the convalescent princess by noting who she might have met. Amid public empathy bloomed a darker countercurrent. Clickbait outlets resurrected feud narratives, amplifying speculation that estranged relatives across the Atlantic learned of her illness through the same broadcast as everyone else. Kensington's press office refused to dignify claims, freeing William to focus on hospital consultations without the drag of reactive briefings. Those who saw him step from black SUVs outside the London clinic described a man leaning forward, as though every minute lost to flashbulbs equaled minutes stolen from his children. Summer edged closer. In gardens across Britain, lilies replaced daffodils. On the last Friday of May, 2,000 scouts gathered in Cumbria for a jamboree promoting Catherine's long-standing mental health initiative. A pre-recorded audio greeting played across Tense at Dusk, her voice slightly thinner but unmistakably buoyant, thanking them for carrying the torch I can't hold in person today. Teenage volunteers, many raised on her open-field campfire sing-alongs, stood in silent salute before losing themselves in cheers that echoed into the fell valleys. No formal bulletin promises her return date. Doctors speak of gradual goals, measured in recovered white cell counts, not diary pages. Yet inside the palace calendar, a pencil annotation already circles December's Royal Carols concert, the event Catherine conceived in pandemic gloom to highlight community resilience. Whether she will grace the Abbey Aisle that night remains uncertain. What seems less in doubt is the institution's collective awareness that her absence has clarified her value more starkly than any gala could. Until then, the princess now spends mornings in a sunlit nook of Kensington's nursery wing, reviewing literacy program updates between infusions, sketchbook balanced on a soft blanket to mask the cannula bruising her forearm. William's daily brief filters world crises into digestible packets, delivered over ginger tea whose scent helps settle her stomach. Charlotte pops in to demonstrate a newly perfected cartwheel. George requests help citing primary sources for a history essay on the Normandy landings. Louis arrives brandishing a plastic stethoscope announcing, "I'm on mummy duty," before prescribing 2 marshmallows and a Disney film. The scene remains unseen by the public, yet its silhouette lingers behind every trimmed-down court circular. If monarchy survives by weaving private devotion into public symbolism, the quiet tableau of a recovering princess reviewing charity memos between children's hugs may, in the long run, resonate louder than balcony pageantry. And so Britain waits, not in anxious suspense alone, but with the steadier rhythm of shared human experience, convinced that the woman who once revitalized a centuries-old institution through accessible normality will navigate this most intimate ordeal with the same mixture of discipline, candor, and grace that long ago turned a simple girl from Berkshire into a figure central to the nation's sense of itself.